Welcome to Spinner Rack. This is the official comic book podcast of Secret Friends Unite's Patreon. This is the show where we talk about a comic book event, or a comic book character on every other week on Patreon for our Patreons to get it first. And then about a week later, then it goes out to the feed, but you get ad free and first on Patreon. So with that, I just want to
Got
say
that?
thanks to all our Patreons. They're amazing folks. We've had some new ones added. And if you are checking this out on a free trial, I think I saw someone else get a free trial. Hopefully you check out all our stuff in our back catalog. We have a ridiculous amount of content there, old shows of this, many more of our spotlight episodes, also some things we've done in the past. So check those out. So once again, thank you to our patrons that make all of this possible. But we are getting to talk about a book this week, which is a little bit different than we normally cover. We don't cover a lot of horror books, Charlie.
Right.
But we're covering a book called OUTCAST this week by Robert Kirkman, and the artist's name, Azateka.
Quick sidebar, which
Yes.
I thought was hilarious because we last time you picked a book, you and I both read it. And then I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, how am I supposed to tell him I thought this was terrible? And I'm like sitting here and fretting on it. Then you finally get on and I said, I don't think I can talk about this book. I thought it was terrible. You're like, I thought it was terrible too. I'm like, why do we read it? I mean, sometimes you got to take the journey, right? Sometimes you got to take the journey, but definitely was not the case here. Because this is Robert Kirkman, Mr. Walking Dead, Mr. Invincible, which I've never really gotten into Invincible, but I love The Walking Dead, both the comic. I will admit, I don't know that I think I dropped off at a certain point, but I know I've read most of it. And then I definitely did read the end. But this was great. The art seemed very similar in style to portions of The Walking Dead. So I wonder if maybe this artist also worked on that title at some point. Also, I don't know when this came out. Do we have a date on this? Looking at it?
This one came out. I normally put a link to it, but apparently I did not this time. But the artist has done some other books, mostly smaller stuff. This title came out in looking. Where's the date?
I wonder if it's recent.
2015.
Oh, okay. Yeah, boy.
So
yeah, it was something he was doing while he was doing The Walking Dead, because The Walking Dead only ended 2-3 years ago, and it had been going on since 2003. I'm thinking, The Walking Dead, is an older book, without a doubt.
Absolutely. And the show didn't come on until 2010. So It's a long heritage book. Kirkman, this is an Image book, was also on Comixology, so you can check it out there.
Yep.
And Kirkman is, it's kind of crazy how it happened. He became basically a partner of Image. And basically now he's I believe, the editor-in-chief at Image, and is a bigwig. So,
okay.
Which is amazing. Yeah, and Skybound is his imprint,
so
which also then has G.I. Joe and Transformers.
Oh, so he's in league with like CB Sobieski, the guy whose name I can never get right at Marvel. Is Jim Lee still the head editor-in-chief guy at DC, or is it somebody else?
Jim Lee is now the head of DC Comics. Totally.
Okay, so
anything DC Comics. So that's him.
He's higher still, is what you're saying, or are we? Is it Correct. Kind of on par? Gotcha. So the luminaries. But I really dug this. Let me read you the pitch. But I really enjoyed this. I'll get that out of the way. But Kyle Barnes has been plagued by demonic possession all of his life, and now he needs answers as an adult. Unfortunately, what he uncovers along the way could bring about the end of life on Earth. As we know it, we didn't quite get that far in the book. This collects Outcast by Kirkman and Azateta, 1 through 6, and I believe there was at least a second volume. Do we know how long this ran?
It did pretty well.
Okay.
Let's see. I will see really quick how many volumes it got. It at least got, what's this?
2.
This is volume 6, at least 6 volumes.
Okay.
So we're talking about, 40 issues at least.
All right, well,
Yeah,
it's a good run. Because that's at least a couple 3-4 years worth. So all right, well, let me paint a picture, if I might. So we have this. We tune in on lower middle class household. Mom is yelling at a teenage daughter, and you have a tween-aged boy in the pantry chewing on something. You can't really see what's going on. And the teenage daughter storms out. The mom walks over to the son, and he turns around and he's bitten off the end of his finger, and he's saying, I'm so hungry. It's freaky as shit, right? Looks like something you would absolutely see on a Walking Dead or another show of that supernatural. So, well, maybe not supernatural. They didn't get really that gritty on the CW. I think you would agree. No, you think? Did they get weird?
Well, I mean, there were some moments that are pretty gross and disgusting, but yes, this was
Yeah,
disturbing to say the least
yeah,
because it was just sitting there chewing on his finger. Gross.
right. And then yeah, we instantly position over to the protagonist of our story, Kyle Barnes. He is kind of a going nowhere, doing nothing, living in his mother's home, though his mother is hospitalized, as we later learn. And he's sleeping on a mattress on the floor, and the place is trashed. He doesn't appear to have a job. He doesn't have a car. Nothing's really happening for this dude. But his sister, he was adopted, so his adopted sister, if I'm processing this correctly,
Correct. Yep.
is always on him to go to the grocery store, and she drives him around and is trying to keep an eye on him because he's had a rough go of it. He had a domestic dispute with his ex-wife, where he, attacked her violently, and we don't really know the details of that. But he is
And
estranged
also
from
his
his daughter.
child. Yeah. So basically, hurt his daughter, hurt his wife, and yeah, he's a
Yeah,
pariah
yeah,
to say the
exactly.
least.
So yeah, living in a van down by the river. But yeah, we get certainly in the first issue or few issues, we get kind of the depths of, wow, this guy's life is really bad. But another character we quickly get introduced to, and this kind of has got more of a Stephen King vibe to it, because we have a sheriff and we have a small town preacher, which is every Stephen King book ever. Because the small town sheriff or policeman is our hero's brother-in-law, this Megan, who's his adopted sister. That's the husband who hates his guts because he believes the guy's a domestic
Correct.
abuser and scumbag.
And he can't believe his sister still would, help this guy out,
Right.
despite Paul's own wants to say, basically, leave me alone.
Yeah.
If you leave me alone, I'll go with you. And his brother-in-law even brings, he brings it up to his wife. It's like, he doesn't even want to be here. So
Yeah,
why do you
right.
keep doing this?
Yeah, and even his little niece confronts him and says, "Didn't you hurt your daughter?" And then that's too much for Kyle to handle. And he just walks home. He does seem chummy with his next door neighbor. I don't know if you caught this, but his next door neighbor, the older man, his name is Norville, which is Shaggy's name in Scooby Doo. Look at that.
That's right. I'm sure it's all about that. I'm
That's
sure we'll run into a
we'll
Scoobert, Dubert.
Scoobert of Earth. Scooby-Doo will show up to basically be the avenging angel. But the small town preacher basically performs kind of like small town exorcisms. Like there was this woman in his parish that was clearly suffering from some kind of possession, and he worked hard to help her, but didn't kind of get her all the way, but helped her enough. We find out later in the story, but by hook or by crook, the preacher and Kyle end up together. And I'm trying to remember the details of that. How do they end up connected?
Because the opening credit scene that we talked about was essentially the pastor getting called to help the young boy,
Right.
because of so after that happened, he looked into Kyle's background, or Paul's background, to basically say,
No, Kyle.
hey, Paul's
Kyle,
background. Yeah.
Kyle's the main guy. Kyle Barnes. You keep
Why do I
saying
keep
Paul.
saying Paul?
I don't know who Paul is.
Kyle.
You got me.
Paul. So Kyle, the pastor looked into his past and said, "Oh, I noticed some of the things that were documented in his history.
Right.
Also, is just what I encountered." So he's like, "I got to talk to Kyle and see maybe if he can help out, because he knows that with his mother, his wife, and his daughter."
It's a
Stuff
whole
has
lot
followed him around, and he's still alive.
Right.
And those people seem to be normal again.
Right.
That's the way they could be normal. One's comatose, and the other two, it seems like, are not.
Right.
Are not off their kilter. So yeah, they kind of connect, and he ends up talking Kyle into checking the situation out with the boy to see what he can do to help. And because Kyle's like, whatever, sure, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, they go to this kid's house, And he had this kid has been strapped down, and it's very much like The Exorcist. You know,
Mhm.
he's evil. He's kicked his mother. He's like, there's a lot of headbutts in this book. I
There's
noticed
a lot of kicking in the
there's
nose and a lot of headbutts,
yeah.
and yeah,
So
and you know
yeah,
you can, and when you see those things, I think the reason why they do that, Charlie, because if you've ever been hit in the nose,
not to that I
or
bled, but yes, I get it.
I mean, I remember when my son, when I'd hold him as a baby, he would bash his head
Oh,
into my nose.
shit.
You know, it happens,
Yeah,
or you
yeah,
accidentally do something like that, or just those things that are like they
yeah,
resonate with you because you know you've felt the pain before, right? Or
yeah.
you stubbed your toe like Peter
Right.
Griffin. Ah, ah,
Well,
you
I
know,
know my son chomped down and bit me once out of excitement. So yeah, I know that there was no blood, but I
like
remember
your bite. Oh,
kids.
he bit your
Yeah.
finger, like when
No,
you
it was
fingers
like
biting down. You're like, I
I think
felt that.
he bit me in my leg because we were swimming, and he was just like,
Mm.
"Ah!" I can't remember the details, but it was weird. But anyway, so yeah, so Kyle and the pastor are at this kid's house, and Kyle's touch, and Kyle even like he gets his nose bashed, and I think he starts smacking this kid. But when
Oh,
he
the kid bites him
yeah,
so
yeah, he's like,
badly,
like yeah, like
and
on
then
the hand,
yeah, the
and then
blood dripping
yeah.
from him. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, the blood dripping from him lands on this kid, and it pushes out this fog out of his mouth. This black like ugh. So you know that's the fruits of the devil. We'll remember that from the So I Married an Axe Murderer.
Yes.
The
Yes.
fruits of the devil. That's what that was.
And it's very
So
supernatural. The
right.
cloud coming, that's exactly how what happens supernatural. When the demon comes out, it's a
Yeah.
cloud of smoke, very
Right.
gross. And
Right.
that's where you have it. And yeah, Kyle
And
starts to believe a little bit because
right.
of the, yeah, what
Because the
happened.
kid is completely cured. He has no memory of anything that happened. He's just back to being himself. And even though he smacked the crap out of this kid, the mother's like, and it's funny because I think it was not the first incident that happened. It was the same thing with his own mother when he was a
Mhm.
child, because no one pressed charges and there was no witnesses to him trying to murder this kid. He got off scot free because he did the job he was asked to do
And the
in this
pastor was
case.
friends with a cop, and yeah, the mom didn't want to
Yeah,
press charges, and you know
right. Because she got her son back.
his
Yeah.
brother-in-law shows up, and he's obviously pissed because he actually would like to throw him in jail for what
Right.
he's done.
But it can't do it. So he goes on about his way, and this is about the time in the book we start seeing a mysterious background character, an old man with white hair that's kind of hanging around, and he does see. The only person that Kyle will socialize with outside of the pastor is again, it's
Norval.
Shaggy Scrappy Doo Norville, and they have dinner one night, and Shaggy Norville's a very sad guy because his wife passed away, and so they're kind of commiserating about stuff like that. But they don't even know each other to the fact that Norville doesn't know anything about his background. Like Kyle really very much is
He
an
assumed he
insular
was
individual.
single.
Yeah.
Yeah, he assumed he was single,
Uh
didn't
huh.
wasn't married before. So it was a
Yeah.
nice connection. It felt like maybe Kyle is finally, because even
Trying.
says when he asked Kyle
Yeah.
to dinner, and he goes, Kyle says, sure. He goes, oh, well, let me grab an extra plate because he's never took him up on the offer before.
Right.
So it was like
Exactly. So it's
you
kind
see
of
Kyle
kind of
coming slowly back to life.
coming out of his shell a little bit, but
Yeah.
it's at this point when Kyle is getting the vibe that this is the way things are. He visits his nearly comatose mother, who's been in the state hospital. This all takes place in West Virginia, by the way. I did finally catch that in the state hospital or somewhere they went.
I could
Yeah.
tell by the very depressing country nature.
Oh, geez. No offense to one of our, I don't know that we have listeners in West Virginia, but you never know. But Todd's thoughts are his own.
They'd agree as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, they are still there, aren't they? Sorry, West Virginia. West Virginia, Mountain Mama. I'm trying to soothe them from your cruel words. But anyway, he's sitting there speaking to his mother. He was trying to say, hey, I know that wasn't you. And I'm starting to get the feeling that something is up. And where do we go from there? So he leaves there. The man in white is watching from the shadows, and then he actually comes and knocks on Norville's door, and nothing good's going to happen there, and that's the
No.
last time we see Norville.
Yeah. There is a moment we see kind of like how Kyle got his abilities, we believe. When he finally got enough from his mom, like she was beating him all the time, everything, he
Right.
finally just had to stop. And he calls it the house of darkness or whatever, basically, because all the windows are covered. So he
Right.
finally gets mad, and he goes, well, he's taking down the covering of the wall on the
Right.
windows. And he's finally able to break through his mother. And when it's happening, the demon comes out of her and
Right.
into Kyle,
Oh, yeah.
which that's what we assume is happening now, where Kyle has trapped
It's absorbing.
they
Yeah.
basically a presence of the demon, which is allowing him to then manifest powers and abilities, which is pretty cool. But yeah, his mom is comatose now, and he's trying to forgive her and saying, "I remember there was a time before, when this happened."
Right.
And it is really interesting how we then get this partnership with the priest, and then we get a third member of the party who shows up, which is Luke, who is a either he works for he's a detective. I'm not sure
Yeah.
what level of
Yeah.
he's a police detective.
Yeah, as law enforcement, we find out that he has a family friend that's very close with him and his wife.
A
But
partner almost.
yeah,
Yeah.
this guy who then gets possessed and murders the wife when Luke, like, he popped out to pick up takeout or something, and he comes back and he's bit this poor woman's tongue out, and she's dead, and we don't get too much more after that. But yes, this friend, who's Blake, I think, is imprisoned, so they go to visit him in prison, and even the cops are like, you know what? If you got to beat him up, it's cool. We'll make it work. After saying, just be careful, you can't put any marks on him. And then the guy's like, well, you know what? It's all right. If you got to smack him around a little bit, we'll make it work. Which
Yeah, because I mean,
yeah,
Luke is doing the exact same thing. So he had a
yeah,
horrible experience, moment in his life that was
yep,
shook by someone who had changed. So he started
yeah,
investigating, people
yeah.
that
And it
were,
came back right around
murders
again.
and things
Yeah,
of people that had changed, that committed crimes or did something like that. So that's when
right.
he comes to our dynamic duo, which then leads us into Luke, who was hoping, to your point, that
Yeah,
Blake is essentially not right
and
and
he can
it's not the
be
person he knows, and can they
expunged.
help him? And
Yeah,
essentially it's like an interrogation slash exorcism,
and it's more
and it doesn't go
biting
well.
and kicking, and I don't know, I don't think they made, like, they smack him down on a table, and I think they're trying, but it doesn't end up
They were
working.
stopped, yeah, because they
Yeah,
were stopped because Blake started selling guards, and the
yeah,
guards did come in because they
yeah,
can't let the dude die, because
yeah,
that would be a little bit too much. So then it
right.
was basically interrupted, and then at that point, Luke believes, and he still wants them to go after it, but he understands that we're probably not going to be allowed back in.
Yeah, right. I think this case is done. But we're getting close to the end of this volume, and now our preacher goes home, and the man with the white hair is, I think, oh no, he goes to not, I'm trying to remember. Is he waiting for him? No, he's waiting for him out, like he's outside his house, like lurking. I'm trying to remember, because there was at one point that
Well,
the guy with the white hair obviously killed Norville, because he's hanging out. He misrepresents himself as, well, I'm Norville's brother, and he passed away, and I'm, wrapping up all his affairs and stuff. He tells this to Kyle at one point.
Well,
But
Kyle's dropping off Norval's car. Hey, Secret Friends Unite, let me tell you about Zencaster. We use them for our show, and now they're supporting us. Zencaster is now the all-in-one solution making podcasting easy. It's the ultimate web-based podcasting solution. Provides high-quality audio and video podcast production and hosting. With a full suite of professional tools, podcasters can seamlessly record, produce, and publish studio-quality content, all from one dashboard. Being a creator has never been easier. And we chose Zencaster because of the ease of use, high quality output, and it makes it super easy for our guests to come on. We had multiple solutions we tried before, and Zencaster has just been the best fit for us. Why Zencaster? It's now super easy to record a podcast with Zencaster. Log in using your browser and start recording a high quality podcast right away. Record studio quality sounds and up to 4K video with your guests. Feel a sense of Zen knowing Zencaster's multi layered backups ensure you always have your recordings in the highest quality, even if the connection is unstable. Have you ever worried what you sound like? Zencaster's post production process makes you sound buttery smooth. It automatically removes those ums and ahs in your recording. It removes those awkward pauses in conversation too. Set the right podcast loudness and levels while reducing background noise with a click of a button. So, if you're interested in making an easy, high quality podcast just with the click of a browser button, go to zencaster.com/pricing and use my code SFU1. You'll get 30% off your first month of any Zencaster paid plan. I want you to have the same easy experiences I do for all my podcasting and content needs. It's time to share your story. Now back to the show.
Yeah,
he
there
said he
you
let
go.
him borrow at times.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So then that's when they first met. And then when the pastor and
yeah,
Kyle were talking,
yeah.
you saw, we don't even get a name for him, the gray-haired man, I guess, the
Gray-haired man,
fedora man or whatever
exactly.
we call him. Yeah. He talks to them for a little bit and then he walks away. And, the pastor's like, hey, that dude was at my service.
Yeah,
Gives me the heebie-jeebies.
right,
And when he says that, of course, the fedora man looks back and he couldn't have heard us, right?
right. But then the fedora man confronts the pastor, and like I said, I'm trying to remember if it was in his house or outside of his
It
house.
was in the
Yeah,
pastor's house. Yep.
yeah. So
Yep.
and then he
So
he corners him, and he pulls out a knife. And thinking, "Oh, this is going to be the end for the pastor." And you see blood flying. You're like, "Oh my god, what is happening?" And it's obviously revealed at this point that the gray-haired man is a scion of the devil of Mephisto, and what he has done is carved a pentagram right over the heart of the poor pastor, and that's the end of the book.
because he says, whenever
Yeah,
you think about the path you're going on, because now you know too much and
yeah,
we can't have this path going down, that you need to look at that mark
right.
and remember. So either that's going to have some nefarious effects as he's going on
Hmm.
the path, like does it allow
Right,
him to be controlled, or is
right,
it just more along like he's going to panic when he sees it and goes, should I just stop?
right.
So it's
And
very cool. Yeah.
yeah, and I'm remembering the title of the book does come from something that Blake says, because while he's gets his first zap from Kyle and he's recovering a little bit, he says, "Are you an outcast?" And no,
Yes.
it is not Andre 3000 and Big Boy.
No K
Yeah,
in
I
the
know, no
cast.
K, just Outcast with a C. I love this, and I'll make a prediction. This 100% feels like something AMC would snap up and make into a show.
Or Prime now, because it seems like he's doing a lot with Prime with Invincible.
Yeah,
So I think this has got it's got that, like, this could go anywhere. You've got Outcasts, which it seems
yeah,
like there are other outcasts, which
right,
are people that have the ability to at
right,
least
and that, yeah,
fend off demons, and then the
right,
partnerships they build, and we
yeah,
kind of see where it basically looks like. I'm expecting Luke to follow him along because obviously he wants to help people, also Kyle wants to help people, and
yeah,
then so it just feels like this has a recipe for, and that's probably why it got 6 volumes,
yeah,
because it seems like you can go more with it, and it is a property. Hey, adapt it.
yeah,
It's grounded, it's not a
big
lot of
yeah,
special effects, but feels supernatural with a little bit
yep.
more grim
Yeah,
and gross, and
yeah, it's grit
it's
as
more
opposed
R
to,
than
yeah,
PG-13.
yeah, which,
Yeah.
Supernatural, again, I watched bits and pieces of it. April was big. I know April watched all of it, but
It was CW. Yeah.
yeah, it never got too into the weeds with the horror aspect of it, where I think this really could. So yeah, uh, not quite, prestige television, but kind of near it. More premium than prestige, because if prestige is an Andor or a Game of Thrones, this would be more premium. Like it's a little, gives you a little bit more, a little extra.
This feels like that Bounty Man that was on
Oh,
the
right.
Bounty Man that was on that just got canceled, which, Kevin
Oh,
Bacon.
now I don't have to finish it. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, it's enjoyable. I mean, if you like the show, the characters, whether it
Yeah,
goes anywhere,
yeah,
I always say a fun season of television is better than, multiple seasons of crap, right?
yeah. Like the WB, multiple seasons of crap.
Homeboys in Outer Space, Charlie. I think they got multiple
Oh,
seasons. So there you go.
I don't know that that's true, but anyway, yeah. So great book. I would check it out again. Available on Comixology/Kindle, or visit your local comic shop. Talk to your local comic guy. There is one in
Image
your town.
trades are
Yeah,
typically well carried. They
yeah,
tend to last a long time because of the stories. And then
yeah,
also check your library too, because
yeah,
my library has an amazing adult like trade
yeah.
paperback, not just the
Totally.
kiddie stuff.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it is available. But yeah, if we always love to plug the comic shops. If you're a brick and mortar
Yep.
guy, Todd and I read a lot digitally, but we also read single issues too. So do what works for you. But yeah, that's the end of this volume of Spinner Rack. Thanks for stopping by. Patreons, we love you guys. Again, as Todd had mentioned, if you're listening to this on the free feed in the future, patreon.com/Secret Friends Unite. You can try us out for 7 days for free. And then staying on board can be as little as $2 a month. That is a great bargain for all of the content that we have for you. But I have been Charlie Carden. This is Todd Oxtra. And in the meantime, just keep them spinning.
Keep on reading.
This podcast is part of the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and podcast services around the galaxy, as well as video on our YouTube channel. You can support Secret Friends Unite by becoming a Patreon member, get bonus programs and more over at patreon.com/secretfriendsunite. Join our Discord community for even more discussions on all things geek. For all the latest updates on Secret Friends Unite, make sure to follow us on Threads at secret.friends.unite and visit secretfriendsunite.com. Find our merchandise at TeePublic and Redbubble. Thanks for listening, and may the Force live long and prosper.